Ladies and gentlemen, love is sharing a password. At least it used to be, according to Netflix, back on March 10th of 2017. Oh, how times have changed, and they didn't change for the better, at least not for the consumers. And of course, Netflix is a for-profit entity that's being forced to spend a lot more money on its own content creation rather than renting content or licensing content from someone else. So, of course, they were looking for a change. The question is it going to work? I don't know. Let's take a look at the story. Here we go. It's not at all surprising that Netflix needs to change it up a little bit. They have a huge amount of the studios that they used to license their IP from. I mean, come on, you used to see Marvel stuff on Netflix. You would see Disney stuff on Netflix. You would see Warner Media stuff on Netflix. You don't see that much anymore. They're spending billions of dollars to, well, essentially produce their own content, and they need to pay for that somehow. It's a lot more expensive than actually renting someone else's IP, at least for a short period of time. They have to increase their average revenue per user. In fact, all of these streaming services absolutely need to do that. I mean, there's no question. But because of Netflix's laissez-faire approach to their password several years ago, it might be more difficult to, well, crack down on the people that are abusing passwords. And if they go about changing account stuff, which we'll read about in an article, they may push subscribers away. Right now, I will tell you before we start the article that I believe the streaming market for the most part is largely matured. I think that there's some room for growth in maybe HBO Max. There's a little wiggle room, at least in North America, for Disney Plus. But I think Netflix is going to have the hardest time growing because I think they've reached their maximum level. I don't see how you can collect more subscribers for your platform, especially as people are going to start looking to reduce costs. One of the effects of inflation is usually the elimination of luxuries. And believe me, Netflix is a luxury. But hey, let's take a look at the story. From Variety's intelligence platform, they say Netflix password crackdown will be tougher than it seems. I 100% agree. Netflix is looking to increase average revenue per user. The streamer suggested that last week when it announced 2 new options aimed at generating revenue from consumers who currently access Netflix on someone else's dime. Over the next few weeks, Netflix will allow subscribers of its standard and premium plans in 3 countries, Chile, Costa Rica, and Peru, to add accounts of up to 2 people they don't live with. Well, interesting. The streamer will also allow subs on these 3 plans, standard, basic, and premium, to transfer their profile information to an entirely new Netflix account or extra sub account, i.e. the new accounts that are being used to monetize Netflix freeloaders. Like other Netflix tests, this experiment may not end up being rolled out globally. I don't think it will be, but we'll see. The streamer in March 2021 ran a test that nudged users to verify that they indeed lived with the subscriber of the Netflix account that they were using, for example. At the latest experiment to monetize password shares, Netflix may send a verification code to a subscriber. A lot of stuff does this now. To verify a device that's being used to access that subscriber's account in another location. Netflix will use the information, including an IP address and a device ID, to determine when one account is being used by more than one household. Well, unfortunately, many of us travel, so you're going to be getting, I guess, alerts, or these people being experimented on are going to get alerts on their phone. Not to mention the fact that if you use a VPN, for example, your IP could change regularly. This could create a hassle even if you're in the same household with the same device ID. This is very strange. Anyway, in the countries of Chile, Costa Rica, and Peru, it's likely that Netflix's new nudges to discourage password sharing will result in some revenue it wouldn't have otherwise received. I'm not sure I agree with that, and there's reasons. We'll get to them. For example, someone who is freely using someone else's account in one of these 3 countries right now may not want to burden the rightful owner of the account by asking them to verify the device from which they are streaming Netflix. I would say that is just a minimal inconvenience. Something as simple as a text message will solve that on a telephone, so I don't think that's going to be a deterrent, especially if it's a family member or a close personal friend. So, whatever. In that case, the person that is not paying for Netflix might feel inclined to chip in for an extra sub account, and I actually doubt that completely. This is a positive when you consider nearly 36% of Americans said that they share their Netflix account login with relatives per an Advertising Research Foundation survey of U.S. adults fielded in Q2 of 2021. That's fascinating. I have to say, I don't think that either of these options that they're presenting are going to work. We'll get down to the more severe one right now. A more severe and likely backlash-inducing step to minimize password sharing would be to simply further limit the number of screens that one can use on a Netflix account at the same time on certain tiers. In the US, the number of screens one Netflix account can be watched on is 1, 2, or 4. Like I've mentioned before, the premium account is worth 4 screens. So, I don't know. This is a wish and a prayer. Netflix is, of course, looking for ways to generate more revenue from its existing customer base as sub growth has become choppier in recent quarters. That's a very polite way to say it's underperforming as far as its growth. Again, I think it's fairly mature. I don't think you're going to get great leaps and gains in the subscriber base. I think they have to focus on ARPU. And as I mentioned before, they're not really in a position to pull content anymore from all of these other studios like Disney and Warner and Universal and all of them. They have to make it themselves. So this is going to be a real challenge. Netflix added 18.2 million subs globally in obviously 2021, but just 5.5 million of those subs were added in the first quarter of 21. That's interesting. Very, very interesting indeed. And of course, you can see that here in this chart. This helps explain why the streamer most recently in the US raised prices in January. Yes, they did. The price increase was the first for US customers since October of 2020. It's also because Americans can afford to spend more, which increases the value of having streamers in the United States and Canada, because you can have an elevated ARPU and, you know, ride the wave of just a few dollars in foreign markets. But that's beside the case. The price increase was the first, as I mentioned before, since October of 2020. Earlier in March, Netflix raised prices for all of its plans in the UK and Ireland. Again, countries that are, you know, that's not really that big a deal to have a small jump. Most people can afford a small bump in those fees. And again, these are countries that can afford a slightly more expensive subscription service, and of course they'll generate a higher ARPU. Wells Fargo predicts that Netflix will spend $19.3 billion on content in 2022, and that's going to be on a cash basis. So that's interesting. At least they have some idea of where we're going to be with Netflix as far as what they're going to be producing. And again, they have to. They are in that weird place where they have to do so because they are not getting access to the IPs as freely as they were from the other studios, because they're saving them for their own streaming service. But hey, here's the question. Is this going to change your consumption of any of the streaming services if any of them adopt these kind of ideas where they're going to try to lock down the password and lock down the household? Do you think that the remedies proposed in here would actually do anything? Of course, you already know I don't think it's going to help, but whatever. And finally, is that something you do? Do you share your password and account with family members? I'm just curious. You don't have to dox yourself if you feel uncomfortable answering that, but it would be interesting to have kind of an informal, poll down there in the comments below, but do make those comments down below. And of course, if you have anything to add to the conversation, I would truly appreciate it. With that being said, support other independent content creators here on the platform, and of course other streamers on other platforms, because they absolutely need your help. They are not promoted by the AI-driven algorithms that actually, steer you towards the corporate content creators rather than the independents. So it's really helpful if you are subscribed to the channel, if you hit the like button, if you're able to, make comments. It's really important for engagement. And of course, share the content out there that you absolutely enjoy. And of course, with that being said, be sure to take care of yourself. Take care of others. Wash your hands, of course, because it's good hygiene. And until next time, bye.
Hey there, one last quick note before I let you go. And before we make it to the end of this video, I, CultureCasino, have a brand new Teespring store. That's right, you can now go to Teespring, look up CultureCasino, or use the link in the video below, and pick out some handsome and beautiful CultureCasino merchandise with many different designs and styles and colors, many different items. I was actually surprised at all of the things that you could create. And I have some more designs and items on the way here shortly. But, if you want to support the channel in that way, there is some merch. Otherwise, here comes the ending. Thanks for visiting today. Be sure you're subscribed and hit that for alerts.
Yay!
Of course, like and share all of the videos that you can, as it helps with the algorithm. Have a great day.